another deep dive to boost your English skills.
Let's do it.
So this time we're tackling fluency, and I found this script. It's really cool.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about mastering these common phrases that native speakers use all the time, kind of like conversational hacks for sounding more natural.
You know, it's funny how these phrases, they're like little fluency shortcuts, but
Right.
they actually reveal a lot about the deeper unspoken rules of English conversation, like stuff you wouldn't necessarily find in a textbook.
That's so true. So the script's main point is if you can use these phrases, boom, you instantly sound more fluent. But how do you actually use them without sounding like a robot, you know?
It's all about practice.
Yeah.
But more than just memorizing, you need to kind of get the rhythm and flow of the language.
Like a dance.
Yeah, exactly like a dance. You got to feel the music, understand why native speakers use these phrases the way they do.
Makes sense. So less robot, more dancing. Okay, let's get into it. This script lists 10 key phrases, so let's jump right in. First up, that makes sense. The script gives an example of, like, someone explaining why they were late, and you could respond, oh, that makes sense. I use this phrase constantly, but honestly, I never thought about why it works so well.
It seems simple, right? But it's doing a lot of work. When you say that, you're not just acknowledging the information, you're kind of validating the other person's logic. Think about it. If you're in a meeting, a colleague presents a complex idea, and you say, that makes sense. It shows you're following their train of thought, which can be disarming, especially if you're about to disagree.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's like a way to prevent a clash. I like it.
Exactly. Keeps the conversation smooth and avoids potential conflict.
Makes a lot of sense. Okay, next up is I see what you mean. I use this one all the time too, but without really thinking about it. Like if a friend tells me they're stressed about work, I might say, I see what you mean. What's the magic behind those 4 words?
Empathy. Showing empathy. It's a
Right.
huge influency, but often overlooked. You're not just getting the words, but you're also understanding their feelings, their perspective. And that's especially important in English-speaking cultures.
Ah, because it shows you're really listening, not just hearing words.
Yeah, it's a shortcut to building rapport. A quick, I see what you mean, and suddenly you're on the same wavelength.
I like it. Makes you sound super smooth. Okay, phrase number 3. It depends. I've actually heard this one can feel a bit wishy-washy to some non-native speakers.
Right.
The script says it's useful when there's not a simple yes or no answer. Like if someone asks if you like working from home, you could say, it depends on the day. Is that always the best way to use it, though?
A good point. This is where cultural differences can influence how we use language, right? Like some cultures value directness.
Right.
So it depends, might seem evasive. But in English, in professional settings especially, it actually shows you're thinking things through, considering different angles, and that's seen as a good thing.
So instead of rushing to a yes or no, you take a second, showing you're not jumping to conclusions.
Exactly. You're showing you're thoughtful, analytical.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. These phrases really are like secret weapons. Number 4. Let me think about it. Pretty straightforward, right? When you need a moment to collect your thoughts, avoid the ums and ahs,
Right.
but I'm sure there's more to it than that.
Absolutely. It's not just about the fillers. It's about projecting like this quiet confidence and control. Instead of fumbling, you pause deliberately.
Yeah, no, I love.
Like imagine in a job interview, you get a tough question. You say, let me think about it for a moment. Buys you time, shows you're not rattled, and then your answer seems even more carefully considered.
Oh, it's like you're saying, I'm going to give you a well-thought-out response, not just blurt out the first thing that comes to mind.
Exactly. Adds weight to your words.
Okay, on to number 5. I'm not sure, but we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
No idea what the answer is. This one seems like a lifesaver when you're put on the spot, but I bet there's a way to use it strategically.
There is.
Yeah.
Instead of pretending you know something you don't, which, let's be honest, we've all done you acknowledge the gap, but then you keep going.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure, BUT, I'm happy to look into that further.
Turning a weakness into a strength.
Right. It's about showing initiative and willingness to learn.
All right, phrase number 6. What do you think? A classic, right? But is there a strategic way to use it?
There's always strategy. This one is all about shifting the focus from yourself to the other person. It shows you value their input, which is crucial, especially in, say, a negotiation or team discussion.
So it's about, like, sharing the spotlight, not just being polite.
Yeah, it's about creating that sense of partnership, encouraging participation.
Nice. Now, number 7 is interesting. By the way, sounds so casual, Like something you'd use to change the subject when gossiping with friends. I'm sure there's a more strategic use for it.
Oh, absolutely. By the way, it's the master of smooth transitions. You can weave in new information without, like, abruptly changing gears.
I see.
It's like you're catching up with a colleague and you remember something work-related. You can say, by the way, did you see that email about the new project?
Yeah.
Keeps the conversation flowing while subtly introducing a new element.
Sneaky. It's like you're planting a seed for a later discussion without interrupting. I like it.
Exactly. It's smooth.
Okay, number 8 is one I definitely use strategically. That's a good question, I'll admit. Sometimes I say it when I have absolutely no idea what the answer is. Gives me a few seconds to think. But is that all it does? Just buy you time?
Well, it's a great stalling tactic, I'll give you that. But it also does a lot more. It shows you respect the inquiry.
Right.
Imagine a client asks you something really complex, saying, that's a good question. It kind of subtly positions you as the expert who can handle even the tough stuff.
Ooh, so it's like you're saying, I appreciate your insightful question, and I'm the one who can answer it.
Right. Subtly establishing your authority.
Clever.
Oh.
Okay, next. I'll get back to you on that. This seems like standard professional courtesy, but I'm curious, is there a way to make it, even better?
Be specific. Instead of a general, I'll get back to you, give a time frame, I'll email you by the end of the day, shows you're reliable, organized, which is, essential professionally.
So it's not just a promise, it's demonstrating you're on top of it.
Right. Building trust.
All right, last one for this part of our deep dive. I haven't thought about that before. I use this all the time, especially when someone brings up a new idea. What's so great about this phrase?
It's open-minded, shows intellectual curiosity, which, let's be honest, we all like to see in others.
Sure.
Instead of, shutting down an idea,
Yeah.
you acknowledge its uniqueness, create space for exploration.
Oh, I see. So instead of being dismissive, you're actually encouraging brainstorming.
Precisely. It fosters a culture of collaborative learning. And that is where we'll leave it for now. Welcome back. We've been dissecting these 10 powerful English phrases. The ones that can make you sound super fluent. Last time we talked about how even simple expressions, they can have a huge impact on how others see you. How you come across.
It's like you think you're just saying words, but you're actually sending all these subtle signals.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to unpack even more today, like how to use these phrases to really master the art of English conversation,
I'm all ears. Let's start with that makes sense, which we talked about in part 1. It can be great for, validating someone's reasoning and maybe avoiding a disagreement. But what about in more casual situations, like with friends? Could it sound too formal or even sarcastic?
Yeah, that's a good point. Context is everything. With friends, you might say something more relaxed, like, yeah, I get it, or
No.
totally.
Right.
But think about it. That makes sense. It implies a deeper level of understanding, even with friends. It shows you're really paying attention to what they're saying.
So even with friends, using that phrase now and then kind of show you're more engaged in the conversation?
Right. You're taking their ideas seriously. Plus, it can subtly shift the conversation in a more thoughtful direction.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk about, I see what you mean. We talked about how it's all about empathy, but are there any, pitfalls with this one? Could it come across as fake or even, condescending in some situations?
Ooh, that's a good question. It really depends on your tone of voice and body language.
Okay.
Like, if you say, I see what you mean, in a flat or sarcastic way, yeah, it could backfire. Yeah. But if you say it with genuine empathy, a nod, a warm expression, it strengthens the connection.
So it's all about the intention behind the words.
Exactly. And that's true for all these phrases, really.
Okay, it depends. We talked about how it shows nuanced thinking, which is a big plus, especially in professional settings. But let's get practical.
Are there any tips for using "it depends" effectively? It seems like it could easily lead to a dead end in the conversation if you're not careful.
Yeah, you don't want to leave people hanging. The key is to quickly explain what those depends are, like the factors that will influence your decision.
I see.
Like if someone asks, do you like this music? Instead of just, it depends. You could say, it depends. I love the older stuff, but some of the newer songs, not so much.
Oh, so you're giving them a little more insight into your thinking.
Yeah, you're inviting further discussion.
Okay, I like that. Now on to, let me think about it. We talked about how it projects confidence. But are there any times when it might not be the best choice? Like if you're asked something simple, could it make you seem slow, or unsure of yourself.
It's a good point. Using it for every little thing, yeah, it could make you seem hesitant. It's most effective when you need to process more complex information.
It's like you're using the pause to emphasize the importance of the question.
Okay, so choose your moments. Like if a friend asks what you want for dinner, a simple, I'm not sure is enough. But if your boss asks your opinion on like a major decision, then let me think about it for a moment. It might be more appropriate.
Exactly. Read the room. Use the phrase strategically.
Okay. Let's talk about, I'm not sure, but we talked about how to turn uncertainty into an opportunity to learn. But are there any cultural differences to be aware of with this one?
There are. Like, in some cultures, admitting you're not sure, that might be seen as a weakness, right?
Yeah.
But in many English-speaking environments, it can be seen as a sign of humility,
Yeah.
a willingness to learn, which, those are good things.
So it's not about pretending to know everything. It's about being comfortable saying, I don't know, and being open to learning. All right, moving on to what do you think? We talked about how this can invite participation, make things feel more collaborative, but any nuances to using it effectively? Like, is there a difference between saying, what do you think, and what are your thoughts?
Most of the time, they're pretty much interchangeable. But what are your thoughts? It can sound a little more formal, more professional.
Oh, interesting.
It was a bit more casual,
Yeah.
so it could make people feel more comfortable sharing.
Yeah, like you're just inviting a relaxed chat, not putting them on the spot.
Right. It's all about creating that easygoing vibe.
Okay, let's talk about, by the way, we said it can be used for smooth transitions and even to add a bit of humor, but could you also use it to kind of steer a conversation in a certain direction? Like towards your goals?
Oh, absolutely. Think of it as a way to subtly introduce a new element that serves your purpose.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you're talking to a potential client and you want to talk about your area of expertise. You could say, by the way, I recently worked on a project that mentioned something relevant, and I learned some really valuable insights.
So you're not forcing it, but you're strategically guiding the conversation. I like it.
Subtlety is key.
Okay, that's a good question. We said it can buy you time and kind of position you as the expert, but is there a risk of overusing this one? Could it start to sound insincere if you say it too much?
Yeah, you don't want to sound like a broken record. It works best when you really mean it.
Right.
Like those questions that genuinely make you pause and think. And remember, it's not just the words. It's your tone, your whole demeanor. You got to make eye contact, nod thoughtfully, let the person know you're really engaged.
So authenticity is key.
Always.
All right, I'll get back to you on that. We talked about giving a specific time frame to show you're reliable. Any other tips for making this one even more impressive?
Oh, yeah. When you say you'll get back to them, add a little something extra.
Yeah.
Like, I'll get back to you on that by tomorrow. In the meantime, would it be helpful if I sent you a relevant resource?
Oh, so you're going above and beyond.
Right. It shows you're really committed to helping them.
Nice. Okay, last one for this part is, I haven't thought about that before. We talked about how it shows you're open-minded, encourages brainstorming, but are there times when it might not be appropriate to use this phrase?
Good question. It's generally a safe bet, but you got to avoid using it sarcastically.
Okay.
Like if someone states something obvious as if it's a new idea, using, I haven't thought about that before, it could come across as kind of rude.
Oh, yeah, like if someone tells me the sky is blue, I probably wouldn't say, wow, I never thought of it that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all about reading the situation, being sensitive to the context.
Right, right. This has been so eye-opening. I'm already feeling more equipped to handle all these little nuances of conversation. But our exploration's not over yet. In part 3, we'll get even more practical and see how to use these phrases in specific real-life scenarios.
Get ready to level up your conversational skills. We'll dive into how to tailor your language to different situations so you can communicate with confidence and fluency no matter where you are.
All right, welcome back. For the last 2 parts, we've been talking about these 10 awesome phrases. The ones that can make you sound like a natural in English.
Yeah, we've covered what they mean, the subtle signals they send, how to use them strategically.
Right, exactly. But now, let's see them in action. Real-life situations.
Let's do it.
Because, knowing the theory is one thing, but using these phrases in the wild, that's the real test.
Absolutely.
So let's jump into some scenarios where these phrases can really shine. Let's start with, that makes sense. We've talked about how it can be like a magic spell for validating someone's logic, maybe even preventing a fight. But let's say, You're in a team meeting, and someone suggests an idea that you think is totally wrong. How do you use that makes sense without, actually agreeing with them?
Ah, that's where the artful follow-up comes in.
Okay.
You could say something like, that makes sense in terms of, and then briefly explain their logic.
Yeah.
But have we consider, and then bring up your alternative.
Oh, so you're acknowledging their effort, but subtly steering things in a different direction.
Exactly. It's a win-win. You keep the collaboration going, but you also get to advocate for your own ideas.
Okay, I like that. Now, I see what you mean. Well, we talked about it's, empathy superpowers.
Yeah.
But how can you use it to strengthen relationships outside of work, like with friends, family?
Imagine a friend's telling you about a problem, something they're really struggling with.
Yeah.
Instead of jumping in with advice,
Yeah.
you could start with, I see what you mean, and then say something that acknowledges their feelings. Like, that sounds incredibly frustrating. Or, I could only imagine how tough that must be.
So you're giving them space to feel their feelings, showing that you get it on an emotional level.
Right. That's what deepens relationships. Sometimes people just need to feel heard before they can even think about solutions.
It's true. Okay. It depends. We talked about how it shows nuanced thinking. But how do you use it without sounding like you're avoiding a straight answer?
You got to provide context. Don't just say, it depends. Follow up with a little explanation of what those depends are. What factors are influencing your perspective.
Okay.
Like if someone asks, do you like spicy food? Instead of just saying, it depends. You could say, it depends. I love a little kickin' Mexican food, but Thai curries, I can't handle the heat.
So you're kind of showing them how your brain works.
Yeah. You're saying, my answer isn't black and white because it depends on, and then you fill in the blanks.
Makes sense. Okay, let me think about it. We talked about how this can buy you time, make you sound more confident, but how can you use it in more casual settings without sounding too stiff?
You can make it more casual. Instead, let me think about it. You could say something like, give me a sec, or let me mull that over for a minute.
So you're still taking that pause, but it's more relaxed.
Exactly. Matching the vibe,
Okay, cool. Now, I'm not sure, but we talked about how it can be a chance to, embrace not knowing everything and even turn it into a learning opportunity. But how can you use it to connect with people, especially those you've just met?
Let's say you're at, I don't know, a networking event. Someone asks you about something, and you have no clue.
Happens to the best of us.
Instead of panicking, you can say, I'm not sure, but that's a really interesting question. Have you done a lot of research on that?
Ooh, so you're turning it into a chance to learn from them.
Yeah.
Like that.
It keeps the conversation going. Shows you're genuinely curious.
Smooth move. Okay, what do you think? We talked about how this phrase can encourage people to participate, make things more collaborative. But how can you use it to become a better listener, Really understand where someone else is coming from?
Let's say you're having a pretty heated debate with someone.
Yeah.
You completely disagree on something.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to win the argument, you could say, what do you think? And then really listen to their answer.
So it's about putting your ego aside and genuinely wanting to understand their perspective.
Right. It's about listening to learn, not just to respond.
Powerful stuff. Okay. By the way, we talked about how it can be used for smooth transitions, even adding some humor. But how can you use it to, subtly guide a conversation towards your goals?
I imagine you're talking to, I don't know, a potential client or someone you want to collaborate with, and you want to kind of showcase your expertise.
Okay.
You could say, by the way, I recently worked on a project that, and then you describe something relevant to what they need.
So you're casually dropping in your experience, not bragging, just planting a seed.
Exactly. It's about leading the conversation where you want it to go without being too obvious about it.
Sneaky. Okay, that's a good question. We said it can buy you time and make you seem like you know your stuff. But how could you use it to encourage people to think more deeply about something?
Let's say you're, I don't know, giving a presentation, and someone asks a question that has more to it than meets the eye. And instead of giving a quick, easy answer, you could say, that's a good question. And then follow it up with something like, that question really gets to the heart of what, and then you name the core issue. What are some things we need to consider when we're trying to answer that?
So you're using the question to spark a deeper discussion.
Right. You're encouraging people to really think things through.
Nice. Okay, I'll get back to you on that. We talked about giving a specific time frame,
Yeah.
being transparent. But how can you go above and beyond with this phrase? Like really impress someone with your, I don't know, professionalism?
Okay, here's a pro tip. When you say you'll get back to them, offer something extra, like Aunt Netta. I'll get back to you on that by tomorrow. In the meantime, would it be helpful if I sent you? And then you offer a resource,
Yeah.
an article, a contact who might be able to help them.
Wow, so you're not just promising to follow up, you're giving them immediate value.
Exactly. Going the extra mile, it makes a huge difference.
Love it. Okay, and finally, I haven't thought about that before. We talked about how it shows you're open to new ideas, encourages brainstorming, but how can you use it to like build a culture of constant learning and growth within a team or company?
Let's say you're
Yeah.
leading a team and someone shares an idea that's kind of out there.
Yeah.
Instead of shooting it down, you could say, I haven't thought about that before. That's really interesting. Let's brainstorm some ways to test it out or gather more information.
Creating a space where people feel safe to share even their craziest ideas.
Exactly. Because sometimes like the best ideas are the ones that initially sound a little crazy.
So true. Wow, this deep dive has been amazing. We've not only explored these 10 powerful phrases, but we've also seen how they can be like secret weapons for better communication.
It's all about using them strategically, paying attention to the context, and most importantly, being authentic.
Yeah, because when you're genuine, people can feel it. And that's what builds trust, deepens relationships, and ultimately helps you achieve your goals. So keep practicing these phrases, experiment with them, and most importantly, have fun.
And remember, fluency is a journey, not a destination. The more you explore, the more confident you'll become.
Until next time, keep practicing and stay confident.